All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Great to see all of you again. Haven't seen some of you in a couple of hours as we had two breakout sessions. So welcome back to the main plenary, and we're here at the keynote. And we had in this session, just before this was an anti-scam pitch session. So this was a great session where we had 7 organizations pitching their innovative solutions. And I believe all the other breakout rooms as well had equally exciting engagement activities and also content for all of you as well. So we are here now gathered for what is the final keynote before the closing. And just want to share for our audience members online, we will be cutting the video feed. This is to ensure the safety of our speaker. So likewise as well, for all our delegates here, please, if you can, keep your phones away. Now, as you know, dealing with scammers is a very serious and safety issue, a big safety issue. So we want to ensure the safety of our speaker. So please, no videos and no photographs of our speaker that will be coming up here. So he will be sharing a bit more about the mindset and some of the methods of our scammers. He's a scam baiter and he's a YouTube content creator as well. And he will be sharing lessons on technology, persistence, and creativity on how these 3 factors can help to make a real impact on fighting scams globally. So our speaker, scam baiter, YouTube content creator, he is Jim Browning. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome him on stage, please.
Thank you. Okay, lovely to be here amongst fellow scam baiters because you're all in some form a scam baiter. What you do is incredibly important, and I'd like to share a little bit of what I do. Now, if you haven't heard of me before, my name, although it's on the screen as Jim Browning, that's not actually my real name. I do this because I want to stay safe, so that's basically the reason for it. And why do I want to stay safe? It's because I disrupt multi-million-dollar scams. So some of you, I'm guessing, may have heard of my YouTube channel. If you have, could you raise your hand I just want to see how many people have heard of me. That's amazing, okay? So you probably know a little bit about what I do, but for those who don't, if you search for Jim Browning, you'll find a lot of this, but what I'm going to do is just go through and describe a little bit of what I do and what makes the YouTube channel a little bit different. So firstly, I run a scam in reverse. So if a scammer connects to my computer, I have it set up in a way that I can come back to theirs. So I can see what they do, I can hear their phone calls, if they sometimes have CCTV on their network. If you've ever seen one of those videos where somebody's challenging a scammer, and I can see their face, that might have been one of my videos. So in case you might have seen some of this before. And if there's any law enforcement in the room, all of this is completely legal, nothing to see here. Right, so like I say, if I can get access to their computer, I can really unravel a scam. So I get to see insights that a lot of people don't. And not only that, it's not just about creating content on YouTube, it's about actually trying to find out who these scammers are, who the bosses of the organization are, who actually runs it, and in particular, how they run the scam. Why do I do this? Well, I don't need to repeat any of what you've seen in other content. Obviously, a $1 trillion problem, which everybody in this room is trying to attack in some form or another. I have my own little ways, and you'll see how I do this. Now, the reason for the content on the channel is for education. I am completely convinced that if you can see how a scam works, if you can see the language that the scammers use, if you can see their techniques, if you can see them face to face, it has more of an impact on people than maybe bullet point lists or little, everybody has their own ways of doing things. This is mine. So I'm going to go through a pig butchering scam. If you don't know the term, it's a romance scam with a crypto investment scam. These are bound to increase, and this is why I particularly wanted to cover what I've been able to do on a pig butchering scam. We'll see in a second just what should happen with these sorts of scams. AI, I'm convinced, will make this sort of scam worse, primarily because they use an awful lot of people in this scam at the moment, but as time goes on, that will be driven by AI. So what is quite a big logistical problem for scammers, having lots of people run this scam, can only in the future, actually AI will make this a lot easier. But primarily the reason why I do this is I actually enjoy it. I enjoy and get a kick out of not letting scammers have their own way. And I think that's the reason for the popularity of the channel. It is nice to get one over on a scammer. Now, pig butchering scam, I'm just going to run through this very quickly. It's a combination of two scams, romance scam and crypto investment scam. Chinese phrase, they fatten up the victim, they encourage them to put more and more money into an investment scam. But it's one of the most cruel ones that you can imagine, primarily because they build trust over weeks and months. You're convinced that you're speaking to someone who is genuine. And sadly, a lot of these are concentrated in Southeast Asia, but the one that I'm going to concentrate on today is in Dubai. Okay, so I've put out a little video on this already. If you've seen that video, some of the clips that you're going to see here are from that. But I can't do this completely alone, and I'm going to introduce you to somebody called himself Beard, and he was working on the inside of one of these pig butchering scams. So he reached out to me by email. He didn't go to the police. For some reason, he thought that going to the police might get him in more trouble, and that tells you a little bit about the situation he was in. So he came to me, somebody on YouTube, a complete stranger, and he basically said, I'm in this pig butchering scam, how do I get out of it? I know very little about Beard, I've never met him face to face. All I know is he is from Syria. So like a lot of migrant workers in Dubai, he is from overseas. He's in his early 20s, and he was offered the job by a friend of a friend. So he thought he was doing a little bit like the presentation that we saw yesterday. The people who are recruited generally don't know they're getting into a scam, but he figured this out eventually when he got there. And when he did say, look, hey, I'm pretending to be a woman, I'm reaching out to all these usually men on WhatsApp and Telegram, can you help me expose this? So I, of course, took him up on that offer, and what he did was give me access to computers. So there's no hacking involved there, but nevertheless, it was good that he reached out, because he wasn't in Southeast Asia, he was in Dubai. And basically, to cut a long story short, he's actually still there. He managed to get out of that scam call center. It isn't as bad as some of the ones in Southeast Asia. They were a little bit more free to kind of move around, but nevertheless, he's still there and he's still exposing scams. So why Dubai? Well, in this particular case, the buildings that they chose to run the scam from are well outside the center of Dubai. It's really about a 30-minute drive. And if you look at the kind of surroundings of these buildings, they're called the Rahaba residences. It's basically, you can see for miles around, it's really a very kind of barren outskirts of Dubai. This is what the buildings look like. I got some of these from Beard himself. He took a lot of the footage that you're going to see. Looks nice from the outside, tennis courts, running tracks, 8-story building. Like I say, it's quite a bit outside Dubai, but this is the layout of the building. It's like 40 rooms. It was designed to be like kind of a closely knit residential building. But in fact, it was ideal for running a scam, because if you look out the windows, you can see nothing for miles around. You can literally see the police coming. So I think that's part of the reason why they chose this one. Beard took a little bit of footage. Sorry, it's a little bit noisy, this one, but it gives you an idea about the scale of it. The Google Earth pictures show only 4 buildings. In fact, there's 8 buildings. But this is where the scams would have run from. So yeah, anyway, you get the idea. And you may just notice as he pans past here, this, which is a communications van outside the buildings. And they needed this because they didn't have the infrastructure there to take the number of phone calls. And obviously you need phones to run WhatsApp and Telegram. So they were organized enough to have a communications van outside the main residences purely because of the volume of calls they were making. Inside wasn't a pretty picture, 4 people to a room, but you didn't have any privacy if you're on the bottom bunk here. suitcases lying around, soap powder on the floor. The offices weren't much better. So this is real pictures that Beard was able to take inside the call center. Obviously, he could only take this whenever there weren't other scammers around. So how does the scam work? Well, basically, the scammers were all told to pretend to be a woman, much like the story that we heard yesterday. And initially, this scam starts off not with the random text to say, "Hi, how are you doing?" This one, they actually put a lady's profile onto a dating app and then almost immediately tried to get people to communicate via WhatsApp. Because if you're on a dating app, then you have a chance of being discovered as being a fake profile, and then you lose your communication. So they wanted to take people off the dating app. And the next thing was they needed to communicate with people all over the world. So they used something called Hello World Pro, which is just basically an interface on top of WhatsApp and Telegram, which translates from the scammer's language to the victim's language. And they needed this because literally they were scamming people all over the world. So, like I say, front end of WhatsApp and Telegram. And if you look, and we'll see what they see on their screens in a second, they actually tried to scam as many people as possible, and they handled maybe 30 or 40 people at one go. So the Hello World app Pro translated usually from the scammers typing in English to maybe Spanish, Portuguese, any language you name, it was able to translate. So this is a scammer's screen. This is what they see. Don't worry about trying to read the writing. But the big picture on the left, the big window, that is them trying to, if you can make out telephone numbers on the left, they're currently scamming people in South America and Central America. There's Honduras phone numbers there. There's Peruvian ones. This group happened to be concentrating on people in that part of the Americas. And all that's happened here is there's a little bit of conversation between the scammer and the victim. This victim is saying, well, can you send me another picture? And if I run this, you can see what the scammer does. He basically cuts and pastes from a few photographs which are sitting on his computer, and he picks out a nice picture which he's going to send to the victim, and the victim gets this photograph, and he says, how do you like this one? So you can see that their day is basically spent copying and pasting from a script. This is the script. This is the first 3 days of the script. You'll not be able to read this because there's so much of it, but I'll pick out bits. So they build hope with the victims, because if they're targeting South America, they will say, hey, I want to move to South America in the next couple of years, giving them a bit of hope. And then as the script goes on, they start to build the relationship. And I like children so much. And if we have a son, I hope he's tall and handsome like you. So this is what they will copy and paste every single day to these multiple victims. But 17 pages, this is just the first 3 days of that script. And then it moves on to what the scam is properly. So they have an app called YoMite. Don't worry about the name of that app. It's basically they can white label this. They will change that app from time to time, and they start to say how she makes all of her money. And it says, hey, I'm going to do today's task. I'm going to do this. So it's really fake looking, but nevertheless, this is what they do to kind of bring the victim along to say, hey, you're going to invest with me. And eventually, they get to say, oh, do you have a crypto wallet? Because you're going to need this for what I'm going to get you to do. These are photographs that I lifted off some of their computers, so you get the idea of the kind of pictures they're going to send to the victims. All these nice-looking, glamorous women, the lifestyle that she leads, and the sports cars, and there'll be pictures of money, exotic holidays. You get the idea. This is this new girlfriend that someone is going to have. This is one of the videos. This is Anel. And you might wonder, these photographs, this video, have they just lifted this off Instagram? Or where has this come from? Have they stolen those pictures? And the answer is no, they haven't, because this is undercover footage, which was shot by Beard, and the model that you saw there actually resides with the scammers. She sits in the same building, and what she does is does FaceTime calls, face-to-face calls with her prospective victims. So if you're ever in any doubt about well, how could somebody believe that this glamorous lady is reaching out and they want to have a relationship with them? Well, this is why. I'll play this video, which he captured very bravely by sitting in the corner and subtly putting his camera up. You may just about be able to hear her. She's conversing in Spanish. Hola. And eventually she will get to the point where she can't speak any more Spanish because she only knows about 2 words of Spanish. So she'll say to the victim, contact me on WhatsApp, because that's then back to the people who copy and paste the script. I will message you WhatsApp, is what she's saying. Thank you, bye-bye. That's enough to keep her victims assured that she's real. Okay, so again, just think about that. You've been conversing with somebody, you have your doubts whether they're real or not, you've just had your photo conversation with them. Now, how much is she getting paid for all of this? Well, Beard actually interviewed her. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but the basics of this is she used to get about $3,000. She's now on $2,000. That's about 2,500-ish Singapore dollars. So it's a reasonable amount of money, but not a huge amount of money to be cooped up doing this sort of scam. If you're a scammer, if you're the guy who does the copy and paste, well, your money depends on how many clients you obtain. And when I mean clients, this is not just people you talk with. This is the people who you actually get to sign up with the fake investment app. And you might see kind of towards the bottom, if you get no clients per month, you get a salary of 1,500 AED. That's about $500, maybe 400, 500 Singapore. And that's barely enough to live on. Or if you don't get any clients, you'll see probably at the end there that you could be directly dismissed. So it's not like, I mean, this, again, maybe isn't as severe as some of the Southeast Asian scams, but nevertheless, you're expected to get a certain number of victims, although they're called clients in this case. But that's typical for scammers. But it's the scale of this scam which is kind of the outstanding bit for me. 4 buildings, 8 floors, 40 people per floor, well over 2,000 people are involved or were involved in this scam. So it is a huge industry. I'm just going to skip over this part of it because it kind of describes the fake investment platform. It had an app name called Yomite, and all that this does was really, it was a front for a fake investment platform. If you look, there are telltales that this is fake because it's got a registration in New York City, business owner has got a Chinese name, but it's basically a fake platform. But don't forget, the people who are engaged in this scam have been encouraged to do so by their girlfriend, by someone who has been conversing with them for weeks. And although there are red flags here, I kind of highlight a few of them. Because they have built the trust with you, you're very unlikely to look at all of this information. Maybe we as professionals would say, well, you should be looking for, is there a phone number, is there a valid address? But no, if you've been convinced by someone who you can trust, you're far less likely to look for all of this. If you look at the website itself, it is complete garbage. It seems to be translated Chinese, I think, but I can't even read these sentences because they don't really make sense. All the words are there, but together they make no sense. So there are red flags there, but don't forget you're being convinced by your girlfriend. So what do I do? Because I can see that Beard has basically given me access to the computers. How do I go about trying to do something about it? And it's not just about making content. I actually like to try and see if I can do something about the scam itself. Now, coincidentally, I had been contacted by IFW Global. I don't know if there are actually any reps in the room, but Ken Gamble, who's kind of leads on that, happened to, at the same time, tell me about a victim that he was working with who had lost about 10 million Australian dollars, maybe 8 million, 8.5 million Singapore. So a huge amount of money. And when we looked at this, he sent the scammers a Grabify link, and that basically tells you their IP address. And the IP address happened to be the same call center that I was looking at. So basically, we had a victim who had lost a lot of money, And we had a lot of details about the scam. So all that kind of material that I showed you about capturing this woman's, giving fake information to her clients, we gave all of that to the police in Dubai. And actually, Ken's team went to Dubai to try and liaise directly with the police at that point. And to cut a very long story short, we tried the normal police route, and nothing happened. So this was mostly in 2023. And when nothing happened, I put a video out about February last year showing you basically what you've just seen there. So what happened when that was released? Initially nothing, but eventually 12 weeks later, that building that we just saw, the Rahaba residences, were raided. Okay, so raided about 12 weeks after the video went out. 2,000 people were arrested. And this is where I've got to give credit to the UAE police, because I never thought such an operation to this scale was even possible, but they managed to arrest nearly 2,000 people at one site. And not only that, they chased up on where some of the scammers actually went to and some of the bosses they were able to follow. And another 1,000 people in other locations, Azyaman, Ras Al Khaimah. There were a number of other raids which happened, so well over 3,000 people were arrested. And the majority of those were foreign workers. So like is typical in Dubai, you get a lot of foreign nationals. I was told that the jails in Dubai weren't actually enough to accommodate that number of people, so they had no choice, and the majority were actually deported. And the ringleaders were locked up, and I'll come on to that in a second. This is footage of the raid in those residences. So you'll see kind of people with cable ties behind them, I guess, not enough handcuffs, I can imagine. There's buses in the background here to take this number of people away. And at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see some of the ringleaders, and they're in their underwear for some reason. Don't know why, it's maybe to humiliate them. But these are the kind of Chinese gangs who were the ringleaders responsible. There's also like ambulances. This was a major operation, and I've got to hand it to the UAE police. They did really well to do something at this sort of size. I know I've got one or two reps in here, so I'm going to say that anyway. But when I was mentioning the scale of this, if you keep 2,000 people almost captive in a residence, you need your own medical facilities. And when the police raided the place, they were able to actually see photographs. These are photographs inside the building. And these are all like kind of Chinese pharmaceutical products. There's a blood monitoring machine, all to keep scammers from leaving the building. So you need sort of infrastructure. And what was actually taken was they managed to go to the ringleaders and recover 3 white Rolls Royces. I don't know whether it was for export or not. The picture on the right there shows some of the computers and monitor equipment, and at the bottom there is just a total of what they managed to get from the boss of the organization. 70 million AED is about 25 million Singapore dollars in cash from the ringleader. So they managed to seize those assets, which is great. So all I want to do was say, look, and indulge me in this last slide, but over the last couple of days, I've spoken to a lot of people here. So some are in huge organizations. Some of you are just one man. I mean, there's people I've talked to literally are a one-man army and managed to remove scammer websites automatically. So, some of you are in huge organizations. Some of you are just tiny, but you're all trying to make an impact on scams. And something as simple as putting a YouTube video up about a scam can be enough to actually do something. So everybody has their own skill set. The YouTube bit is maybe mine, but everybody in this room can potentially do something like this, even if they don't know about it directly. And for me, the sheer number of people involved in this scam was incredible. I've never seen anything like this. But I can only imagine the other parks, like KP Park and the other scam organizations, they must be something similar or bigger. So bear in mind that at least the police in this country were able to do something about it. obviously some of the other countries, it must be something similar, if not worse. And you just bear in mind that this is affecting a huge number of victims and the huge number of people who are trafficked in to do this. But pay particular attention to the victims in all of this, because I hate to hear people saying, well, how on earth could you be taken in by a scam like this? This is the worst thing you can do. You have spoken to your girlfriend. You've had a face-to-face meeting with her. You are completely convinced that she's real because she is real. And that's really the most sickening part of this whole scam. And, you know, for me, building that trust is exactly the mode that most modern scammers are using. Gone are the days of the kind of Nigerian prince who's sending out loads of emails, going to give you his fortune. These days, it's all about building that trust. This pig butchering scam is probably one of the worst of it. So again, I watched the presentation yesterday from Paul, who started off with the victims in all of this. I only see a fraction of the victims, but if you can imagine multiplying that by the number of contacts that these people are making, it has a huge impact. So even making a small dent in this sort of scam can be hugely rewarding. So that's why I'm going to kind of keep on my fight against scammers, and hopefully it inspires you guys in whatever you do, in whatever way, whatever products you have, whatever ideas you have to kind of go after scammers. Hopefully this will inspire you to keep going with that. I'm certainly going to do it because of the victims. So the last thing I'm going to say is, if I can help you or you can help me, please let me know. I hate the word collaborating because we've probably used it too much at this stage, but do get in touch with me if you think I can help you. I do get huge insights into scams. I've already said that the videos that I put online, if you're using them for education, non-profit, they are free for you to use, and please do use them. So if, for example, you're in any sort of education, just drop me an email, say, hey, I want to use your videos. I will always say yes to that. So please feel free to use those videos. If you want to contact me, I've got LinkedIn QR codes. If you want to look more into these videos, there's a couple of links for those as well. And just lastly, I'd like to say thanks for listening to me. Keep doing what you're doing, and thank you again. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Browning. I think he's an absolute national treasure, a global treasure, ladies and gentlemen. But just to remind everybody, if you're scanning the QR code, please don't take any photos of Jim for his safety. So thank you very much, Jim. Let's give him a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Doing fantastic work, Jim. And I'm truly impressed, right? Because by taking down this huge 2,000 people organization, not only saving people involved in human trafficking, not only saving financial resources, and also he is helping people as well. So yesterday we had Paul share with us on how people have taken their own lives. So Jim is doing great work saving people's lives, people's money as well. So thank you very much, Jim, for your wonderful work.